Hi, everyone. Welcome back to Cleanliness is Close to Godliness, the podcast where we dive deep into the details of sterile processing and surgical support. I'm your host, Gabrielle, and today's episode is all about a critical and often misunderstood topic: complex surgical instrumentation. These aren't your everyday tools. These are the instruments with fine details, moving parts, electronic components, and specialized cleaning protocols. And joining me today to help break it all down is someone who works closely with these tools every day. Jordan, a certified surgical technologist with years of OR and SPD collaboration. Welcome, Jordan.
Hey Gabrielle, thanks for having me. I'm really looking forward to this chat. There's a lot we need to talk about when it comes to these instruments. They're not just tools, they're high stakes equipment.
Exactly. So let's define it for those who may not be familiar. When we say complex instruments, what are we referring to?
We're talking about surgical tools that are intricate in design or function, like robotic surgical instruments, power tools, flexible endoscopes, laparoscopic equipment, along with anything with hinges, lumens, or sensitive electronics. These aren't one-piece tools. They may disassemble into 4, 5, even 10 different parts.
Oh, wow. And that's what makes them so tricky to process. Each part needs to be cleaned, inspected, and sterilized correctly, or the whole instrument is compromised. The cleaning instructions alone, those IFUs can be extremely long and technical.
Right.
Let's get into the challenges. Where are the most common failure points when it comes to reprocessing these tools?
Number 1, time management. Don't rush. If SPD is understaffed or backed up, techs may try to skip steps like brushing internal channels or verifying lumen clearance. And let's be honest, sometimes IFUs are missing or the staff hasn't been trained on new instruments yet.
I've seen departments where techs are using tools they've never received proper training on. They're doing their best, but without vendor guidance or updates, it's a guessing game.
Right, and the consequences are serious. I remember a case where a camera cable for a laparoscopic tower was cleaned out but not dried properly. It caused internal corrosion and the entire unit had to be replaced. That's a $12,000 error right there.
That is so expensive. Now let's talk about the pressure that SPD teams are under. I think a lot of people don't understand the expectations placed on techs who can clean these instruments.
Absolutely. The SPD is often seen as behind the scenes, but it's a high stress, high skill job. If you're handling dozens of trays per shift, if every one of those trays contains complex instruments, it can take 2 to 3 times longer to process.
Not to mention, techs are expected to memorize dozens of IFUs, identify missing components, inspect for micro cracks, and troubleshoot issues on the fly, all while being timed and held to a turnaround deadline.
It can be a lot. And let's not forget that complex tools often come back from the OR dirty, tangled, or missing pieces, and it's SPD's job to catch this before it's a washer.
Jordan, do you have a memorable moment where things didn't go as planned?
Oh my goodness. Absolutely. We had a robotic arm returned from the OR. It was supposed to be flushed and wiped in the point of use decontamination step, but that didn't happen. By the time it got to SPD, blood and tissue were dried inside a narrow lumen. The tech missed it because it looked clean on the outside. The next day, same arm was sent back up, and the surgeon noticed the smell. Case canceled immediately. The rep had to be called. The SPD had to retrain every staff member on the proper lumen cleaning process with a $4,000 loss in instrument downtime.
Whew, that's the kind of story people need to hear, not to scare them, but to understand how fragile the whole process is.
Exactly.
Excuse me. So let's talk solutions. What helps SPD teams handle complex instrumentation better?
Dedicated workstations for one. These instruments shouldn't be processed on the same table as basic tools. Dedicated tables help focus, spacing, and keep IFUs nearby. IFU access is also important. Having digital access or laminated cards right at the workstation reduces guesswork and builds confidence. Vendor reps and in-services. When a new instrument is introduced, vendor-led in-services are invaluable, as well as real-time audits. Peer-to-peer checklists and audits help maintain quality and reinforce training. Always ask for help.
I would also like to add standardization across facilities. If you're part of a hospital system, standardize trays and cleaning processes across all locations. It reduces error when staff float or move between sites.
Mm-hmm.
Now let's take a quick look at the future. How do you see technology improving the way we handle complex instruments?
There's a lot of potential. We're starting to see RFID tagging and instrument tracking systems that alert techs if a step is missed. Some hospitals use AI-driven software that compares what's in the tray to what's supposed to be in the tray, using weight and layout.
Even automated washers are evolving. Some new systems have settings specifically for robotic instruments with programmable cycles based on the IFU.
Mm-hmm. And as technology continues to advance, training has to be kept up. That means ongoing CE credits, on-the-job workshops, and management prioritizing investment in the sterile processing department.
All right. Time for resources. Listeners, if you want to expand your knowledge, here are a few go-to options. AAMI ST91 and ST79 guidelines. This is for foundational standards for cleaning complex devices. Another is IAHCSMM, now called HSPA, study guides and continuing education modules within sterile processing. You can also use CDC disinfection and sterilization guidelines, as well as manufacturer websites, Steris, Olympus, Intuitive Surgical, or 3M. You can also use YouTube training from vendors and professional organizations. Now, Jordan, if you had to summarize this conversation into one takeaway, what would it be?
I would say my takeaway would be that complex instruments aren't just harder, they're riskier, and they demand higher standards. Whether you're in SPD or the OR or management, it takes collaboration, respect, and resources to get it right.
That's powerful. My takeaway? The work we do in sterile processing isn't about cleaning instruments, it's about saving lives. Complex instruments are the tools surgeons trust the most, and SPD is the team making sure that trust is earned every single day.
It's important. Well, thanks for having me, Gabrielle. I hope this podcast helps someone feel more empowered, or maybe sparks a change in how their department handles training.
Thank you, Jordan, and thank you to all our listeners for tuning in. If this episode spoke to you, please share it with a colleague, subscribe to the channel, and check the episode notes for links to the resources we mentioned. Remember, cleanliness is close to godliness, especially when you're responsible for the tools that protect lives. Until next time, stay sharp, stay safe, stay compliant.